There is a cold, unforgiving reality of the wilderness that modern survival gear marketing desperately tries to hide from you. When the sky breaks open and a violent thunderstorm hits, being wet isn't just uncomfortable, it is a countdown to hypothermia and death. The outdoor industry wants you to trust paper-thin nylon and factory chemical sprays to keep you dry. But when the wind howls at 50 miles an hour and the rain falls in sheets, that flimsy plastic will collapse, pool, and ultimately fail you. But military veterans and our grandfathers knew a darker truth. You do not survive a storm by trusting the fabric. You survive a storm by commanding the physics around it. Welcome back to the den. The military veterans of the past didn't have access to modern Gore-Tex or ultra-lightweight silicone-coated fabrics. When they were deployed in unforgiving environments, facing torrential monsoon rains and freezing thunderstorms, their survival depended entirely on analog systems. They built shelters that defied the elements, using geometry, raw mechanical tension, and environmental manipulation. Today, preppers set up a tent and pray it holds. The veteran builds a shelter and knows it will outlast the storm. Buried in the pages of forgotten military field manuals are 5 specific thunderstorm secrets, tactics built entirely on the laws of physics. These are the unbreakable shelter protocols that guarantee you will stay dry while the rest of the world drowns. Let me show you exactly how the ghosts of the past engineered the perfect leak-proof survival shelter. The first fatal mistake modern preppers make is looking up at the sky, ignoring the ground beneath their feet. The veterans relied on the hydrostatic trench and berm protocol. They relied on this because no matter how waterproof your roof is, gravity will pull thousands of gallons of water directly under your sleeping area. Modern tents rely on a thin plastic bathtub floor that inevitably punctures. The military secret is to stop the water before it ever reaches your perimeter. By digging a 4-inch trench directly under the drip line of your shelter roof and piling that dirt inward to create a raised berm, you manipulate the topography. The trench acts as a gutter system, capturing the heavy runoff, while the berm acts as a physical dam. Imagine waking up at 2 in the morning. The thunder is deafening. A flash flood is ripping through your campsite. The ground has turned into a shallow river. If you were in a modern tent, you would be floating in a freezing puddle. But you aren't. You hear the rushing water, but you stay entirely dry. The hydrostatic trench is violently channeling the river safely around your shelter. You use the earth to defeat the water. But defeating the ground means nothing if the roof caves in. This brings us to ridge-line geometry and the Taut-Line hitch. Modern campers use flexible fiberglass poles that bend and snap under heavy wind, allowing water to pool on top of the fabric. Pooling water creates massive weight, which forces water through the microscopic seams. The veteran relied on absolute mechanical tension. They relied on this because water cannot pool on a surface that is drum-tight and steeply angled. The Taut-Line hitch is a friction knot that allows you to continuously adjust and tighten the anchor lines of your shelter. A massive gust of wind hits your camp, stretching the fabric of your shelter. In a normal setup, the tarp would sag, forming a bowl that collects 10 pounds of freezing rainwater. But you step outside into the storm, reach down to your anchor points, and slide the Taut-Line hitch up the rope. You instantly re-engage the mechanical tension. The canvas snaps back into a perfect, aggressive angle. The heavy rain hits the roof and violently deflects off. No pooling, no sagging, just pure, unbreakable geometry. Even with perfect tension, sustained storms will eventually saturate a single layer of fabric. To counter this, the military engineered the capillary break, or dual-layer air gap. They used this because of a physical phenomenon called capillary action. If you touch the inside of a saturated single-wall canvas or nylon shelter, the water will instantly wick through the material and run down your arm. The veterans' protocol was to never rely on a single barrier. By suspending a secondary tarp or thermal blanket exactly 6 inches below the primary roof, you create a dead airspace. You are trapped in your shelter on day 3 of a relentless freezing downpour. The outer canvas is completely soaked through. In the pitch black, you sit up and your shoulder brushes against the interior roof of your shelter. In a modern single-wall tent, that contact would instantly break the surface tension, causing freezing water to pour inside. But here, your shoulder only touches the dry inner layer. The 6-inch air gap completely severs the capillary action. The outside world is drowning, but your interior microclimate remains impenetrable. No matter how good your shelter is, man-made seams are the weakest link. When the factory seam tape fails, you need primitive pine pitch seam welding. Modern preppers carry tubes of commercial seam sealer. When that runs out, they panic. The veterans relied on raw wilderness chemistry. They knew that natural pine resin, when melted down and mixed with fine hardwood ash from the fire, creates a primitive, absolute waterproof epoxy that hardens like rock and repels water forever. It's midnight. The wind is tearing at your shelter, and a slow, rhythmic drip begins falling from the central seam directly onto your sleeping bag. Left alone, this drip will cause hypothermia by morning. You don't panic. You reach for your metal tin of pre-mixed pine pitch and ash. You heat it briefly with your lighter until it turns to a thick liquid, and you aggressively smear it over the failing seam. Within seconds, the cold air cures the resin into a hard, waterproof armor. The dripping stops instantly. You didn't just fix the leak, you welded the fabric shut using the blood of the forest. The greatest lie of survival is that keeping the rain off your head is enough. It isn't. The wet ground beneath you is a giant thermal sink that will rapidly drain your core temperature through conduction. Veterans relied on elevating their sleep system because air is an insulator, but wet earth is a killer. By lashing thick branches together to create a raised platform, or utilizing a suspended canvas hammock system, you physically remove yourself from the battlefield of the muddy floor. The storm has raged for 24 hours. The temperature has plummeted near freezing. The ground inside your shelter, despite your trenching, is cold, damp, and unforgiving. If you were sleeping on a modern foam pad on the dirt, the wet cold would be seeping into your bones. But you were lying 12 inches above the mud on a lashed wooden bivouac. The cold air flows harmlessly beneath you. You are completely isolated from the conductive threat of the earth. You are warm, you are dry, and you are in total control. The unbreakable recap. The modern survival industry wants you to be dependent. They want you to buy expensive, fragile gear that will eventually tear, leak, and fail when the true storm arrives. But true survival is about independence. By utilizing the hydrostatic trench, you defeat the flood. Through the Taut-Line hitch and ridge-line geometry, you defeat the wind. The capillary break stops the invisible wicking of water, while pine pitch welding repairs any critical failure. And finally, the elevated bivouac completely isolates your core temperature from the freezing earth. These 5 secrets are not just camping tricks, they are the calculated, military-grade application of physics and mechanics designed to keep men alive in the worst conditions on Earth. A storm does not care about how much money you spent on your gear. It only respects the physics you put in its way. When the sky breaks and the world starts to drown, will your shelter hold?